Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TBR webinar series. Today, Senior Data Analyst Matt Bowden and Senior Vice President of Sales Dan.demers will be discussing the introduction to TBR Insight Center, a powerful data visualization tool. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. At the bottom of your screens, you'll see a series of buttons. From left to right, you can access audio controls, Q&A, speaker bios, survey, information on the next webinar in our series, an exclusive free trial offer for folks on the webinar who are new to TBR, and a related content widget where you can download the slide deck and access other related materials. These buttons on the bottom of the screen allow you to minimize each window to customize your webinar experience. You can also maximize the demo view if you wish to view it in full screen. After the webinar, you'll receive an email with a replay link as well as a link to view and register for other TBR webinars. If you have any questions for us, please submit them via the Q&A widget in On24. You may also reach out to us after the event at webinars@tbri.com. Thank you again for joining us. Here's Dan to begin the webinar.
Thank you, Haley, and welcome everyone to our inaugural presentation of TBRI's Insight Center, a state-of-the-art digital-first platform allowing users to fully manipulate TBR's vendor-centric analysis, giving workflows and use cases the best information in as close to real time as analysis allows. As Haley mentioned, joining me today is Matt Bowden, who has been spearheading the vast majority of TBR's digital transformation as we have taken our analysts' legacy workflows and modernized them with the latest technological tools and collaboration platforms. Our own internal digital transformation has yielded this Insight Center for our users. Today, Matt and I will walk you through one or two of our most common use cases among our thousands and thousands of users as they strive to create the best in-class market and competitive intelligence reports for their own internal constituencies. Looking at our attendee list, we have the pleasure of seeing many of our users, all of whom are very familiar with our legacy library portal. Over the last several years, we've received dozens of comments asking for improvements in searchability, as well as an ability to pull out segments of reports, components of analysis, data sets, and charts that would empower individual users to more closely align to their specific requirements. Thinking in particular of use cases for product managers, for marketing professionals, for folks in finance roles, required to go deeper than a normal report may allow and show line of business revenue, margin, cost, headcount, go-to-market strategy, all of the things that have set TBR apart as a market leader in vendor analysis. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Matt, who will actually walk us through a use case where we examine commonly researched vendors like IBM, AWS, and Microsoft. Today's use case will focus specifically on those three vendors and the various areas in which they maximize revenue in the overall cloud space, diving deeply into subsegments of cloud. So Matt, I hope I've set you up properly. If you wouldn't mind, take it from here.
Thanks, Dan. I'm gonna share my screen with everyone. So just give me 1 second to get that set up.
And as Matt shares his screen, again, this specific use case is representative of the hundreds and hundreds of use cases where TBR analysis, looking at the leading vendors in the dozens of ecosystems within the ICT landscape, whether that might be within services and then managed services, or close to the box services within IT services, or data center and looking at hyperconverged and converged infrastructure. The dozens of various segments within the global ICT landscape are represented by the use case Matt will show us now.
So when you come into the Insight Center, the first thing you're going to end up seeing is TBR's coverage map. So, as Dan was saying, we cover hundreds of different vendors. I'm sorry. Are you able to see the screen, Dan?
Not yet, Matt. It appears to have not loaded yet on the screen.
Okay. I've shared it again. Are you now able to see it?
We can see your screen. However, it appears that it's a blank homepage.
Has it refreshed?
Bear with us, folks, as Matt endeavors to share the portal through the On24 platform.
Dan, are you able to see this now?
There we go. Looks like we got the bandwidth issue cleared up. Great job, Matt. So, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate your patience while we had a little bit of a bandwidth issue. The joys of working from home. Matt, off you go, my friend.
Thanks. So when you come into the Insight Center, the first thing you're going to see is TBR's coverage map. As Dan mentioned, we cover hundreds of IT vendors across a variety of spaces. So you'll see across the top, we have cloud, corporate, data center, devices, digital, IoT, professional services, security, software, telecom. You name it, we cover it for the most part if it's technology. And then once we're inside those segments, we dive even deeper into the sub-segments that really make them up. So for today's demonstration, I'm going to start by looking at the IBM dashboard, specifically cloud. So you'll notice one of the first things is that we have all of our authors' names right at the top, right in the middle. You want to reach out and speak with one of the analysts that work on the IBM Cloud Report. You're able to do that right through this platform, shoot them an email, get answers to your questions, those kinds of things. So that's a really powerful, aspect of this platform in and of itself. But what we've really done is, digitalize our PowerPoint delivery system to make it easier for everyone to get to the insights and analysis that they need. So over here on the left-hand side, we have a content selector. This will help you to narrow down the different content areas that TBR covers. So if your day-to-day role is, for example, strategy focused, we can eliminate all of the other pieces of the report and just focus solely on IBM cloud strategy, whether that be financial, go-to-market, resource management, or partners. Once you've configured the selector on the side, it stays with you across the different segments of the company. So if we wanted to jump from cloud to data center, it's just a simple click at the top, and we have the strategy section for IBM Data Center, right at our fingertips, and then we can switch over, look at professional services, and we have all of that. So you can really look, not just at one segment of a company, but at any of the segments TBR covers. You're able to, really start to reconfigure these as, your job requires. And then, once you have that set up, if you want, we also have toggles at the top that will allow you to download a PDF version of what you see on your screen. So if you want to get, a report that's just on strategy, once you've set that up, you're able to download just the strategy portion. So you no longer need to open, multiple TBR PowerPoints to look across segments, and you no longer need to search within those PowerPoints to find specific segments and pull those slides out. Everything's able to be done right here on the platform. A couple of other features of these dashboards, we do have a legacy file view. So if you click on this files icon, you can actually access other IBM Cloud reports that TBR has previously published in PowerPoint form. So you still have the access to those PowerPoint documents. You'll still have access to Excel files with all the data, but now you will also have a digital way of also, looking at and manipulating all of that data. And then we also have links to our quant data, which I will show later in the demonstration, along with our visualization platform, access to our benchmark reports through here, as well as the market forecasts. So the next place I'm going to go is actually our benchmark report. So I'll just click on this icon, and it will take me directly to our benchmark section, and it's already set a filter for IBM. So this is letting me know all of the different benchmarks that TBR has where IBM is a vendor that is covered within that benchmark. So to start, I'm going to look at the public cloud benchmark. Once I'm in here, you'll see a very similar structure and layout to what I had just shown, except now instead of having each of the segments across the top, we have all of the companies that play in the public cloud benchmark space as TBR has defined it. So with this platform, you'll start to be able to see how you'll be able to take our benchmarks, our company dashboards, market forecasts, things of that nature, and really create your own view of the market, view of specific segments. Things of that nature are no longer necessarily defined by TBR, but by the user. And if we look over on the side, we also have the content selector as we did on the company dashboard. One of the additional features I didn't show in the dashboard is that these also serve to navigate the page. So if we know we want to go straight to the appendix and look at financial metrics, a simple click there will get us right to that on the page, and we're able to see, the visualization with all the numbers there. And if we wanted to, jump back to the top, it's another, easy click. Same thing with downloading it, and the authors are available to you as well. Next place I'm going to go is just the market forecast. This is going to look and feel very similar to the benchmarks. Again, companies across the top. I apologize, it's actually downloading the PDF as I click through some of these. But you get the same content that's currently in all of our PowerPoints directly on this platform. The look and feel is very similar to what you're used to. All of the same data points, all of the same analysis is on our new digital platform instead of in the old legacy PowerPoints. And the next piece I'm going to get to is really where this stands out, which is the My Boards feature. So if we come to My Boards, this is where you can really start to utilize the digital format of TBR to make your workflow a little bit easier. So we can create a board, we'll call it a cloud demo, and save that. So this is just a placeholder for content that we're going to start adding to this board. So if we go back, we can go to companies, and let's go back to the IBM board, and we'll pin the TBR position to that cloud demo board. We can then go back out to that companies list, and we'll go to Amazon, and in there, TBR position as well. You will notice that, as of now, we only have this TBR position on the Amazon page. We are actively working on getting all of our PowerPoint content onto this. So when we put it in your hands, you'll have the same set of content on there that you do in the PowerPoint today and through our current portal. And then the last one we'll look at is Microsoft, and we can also pin this to our board as well. So now we have kind of all of the TBR positions for the 3 vendors that we're looking at pinned to that board.
Matt, if I can jump in real quick, we're getting multiple questions on this topic, so I wanted to address it for the broader audience. So what we're sharing with you today is the TBR Insight Center, which we are rolling out in a progression. Many of the existing customers to legacy TBR have been issued anywhere from 1 to 8 or so beta seats, many of whom have been actively participating in the TBR Product Council as our staff work closely with the user community to roll out the most important functionality elements, as well as participate in guiding us as we seek to add approximately 10 net new vendors of coverage per month and the corresponding data sets that align to those vendors. And so the question has come up multiple times, exactly when is this available and how can people get to this portal? So on August 2nd, the members of our beta community, the users who have already been working closely with TBR, will be given access to this TBR Insight Center. And then in September, the broader existing user community, the thousands upon thousands of users all across the ICT landscape themselves who are existing customers will have access to this portal. So if you are already a beta user, you will gain that access by an individual email with your login credentials by August 2nd. And then more broadly in September, there will be more communication coming from your TBR account executives guiding central funders and seat holders on how your staff who has access may be able to use this portal. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you letting me jump in. Back to you.
Yeah, no problem, Dan. So now that we're kind of pinned the TBR position from each of those vendors to our board, now we can start to dive into, their actual positioning within the market and things of that nature that, you might be interested in from a market intelligence or competitive intelligence point of view. So we'll look at the public cloud dashboard real quick. So when we're on here, one of the things that we can look at is, for example, our public cloud growth leaders. So you'll notice, Microsoft and AWS kind of off the chart here in terms of our bubble chart, as well as, IBM being more centrally focused. So let's go ahead and add this to our board. And I apologize, I have a bug in my system that's actually downloading this as I'm clicking around to a PDF. That will be straightened out before you have access to it. And, as I'm doing this, you'll see the three dots kind of extend down to the next section. So each of these is allowing you to pin a certain section of that. So in addition to pinning, this graph of the cloud revenue growth leaders, we're also looking at the public cloud growth versus corporate revenue growth as well, kind of in totality. And then, we also have analysis around, the top leaders in terms of revenue, as well as year-to-year growth that, I think would also be beneficial to have in this board. So, we're clipped kind of two different pieces of content from that board, from that benchmark. Now let's move over to our hybrid benchmark. So
a question, Matt, if I can, another question's coming up about boards. So with respect to being able to custom configure components and elements analysis from various different existing legacy TBR reports, the user who has access to build a board can pin these various segments. And then the question came up, how frequently and how do those segments get updated? Matt, can you just speak a little bit to the ability of these analysis elements to be updated in real time?
Yeah. So, currently TBR works very much off of an earnings gate calendar system where, our reports are published X number of days after a company announces their earnings. In the case of a benchmark, for example, that means that if we're covering, 30 vendors in the cloud segment, that we have to wait for that 30th vendor to release earnings, do our analysis, aggregate everything, and then we can publish, that cloud benchmark. The way we've configured the Insight Center allows the analyst to provide much more real-time analysis instead of needing to create an entire PowerPoint deck and go through, the editing and content review process that we have internally to ensure that we have quality, content in front of you. We've made it so that they can do all of that directly on this platform. for each and every individual piece of a dashboard. So for example, if IBM announced a new product tomorrow, you don't need to wait for IBM's next quarterly report that may not publish for 60 days or something of that nature. Our analysts will be able to come in here. They will write a new go-to-market strategy update that incorporates that new product into the analysis, and it'll go through the same sort of quality controls that we have today with our PowerPoints, but on a digital platform. And then in the future, we'll be able to, provide enhanced notifications to you as well as content is being updated. You'll be able to get notifications that things that you're following, things you've added to your boards, things that matter to you have been updated so that you can come in and check out that new content. So we're really switching, in the long run from publishing things based off of earnings dates of vendors to publishing things as they happen in the market. As the market's shifting, our coverage will reflect that.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. I know that nailed it. That ability to have a curated dashboard with all the things that are of interest to you, the user. If you have 4 vendors that you're assigned to that you need to be able to produce analysis on, this will be a one-stop auto-updated portal for everything you need to know about those vendors. It's exciting. Thanks.
So just due to the bug that I'm having with the PDF downloading, I'm going to skip adding additional content directly to the board, but I still want to walk you through kind of the thought process behind it, just so that we have kind of a cleaner presentation for you. So when we're looking at, hybrid cloud, this is where, you start to bring in IBM. So when we're looking at public cloud, that's really AWS, Microsoft as the leader. IBM's kind of the laggard, in that space to some extent. They're not necessarily top of mind in public cloud, but they're still definitely, a cloud player. And, as we look at the hybrid cloud landscape, we see Microsoft is, clearly a leader, AWS still on the board, and IBM, spare size here reflects the volume of revenue. So you can see IBM is definitely, a decent sized player in this hybrid market. And then when we get into our, hybrid influenced leaders, you can see we got Microsoft with 18.6 billion, followed by IBM with 5.9. So, Microsoft's the leader, but IBM's right behind them. And AWS, is making their moves in the hybrid market as well. So, we might pin this content to there, and then we might look at, let's see. We could look at mergers and acquisitions, for example. So, I'm talking a lot about how IBM's making moves to, pressure Microsoft and things of that nature. We can see IBM's making acquisitions here. They made 2 acquisitions that you can see with Instana and Expertus Technologies. But if we go down and look at partnership activity, this is where AWS is going to stand out. AWS is partnering with Informatica. AWS is partnering with Apptio. AWS is partnering with Capgemini. So, while they're not making the same acquisitions that IBM's making, they're, partnering strategically to advance their own hybrid strategies. So we may want to pin, the acquisitions and the alliances pieces to that board as well to give us kind of a complete picture of what's going on, not only, with public cloud, but also with the hybrid aspects of that cloud market as well. So then the next kind of that I'm looking at is, the components that go into those markets. So if we go back to our cloud components market forecast, here we're going to see that, again, IBM tends to be, kind of a leader in this space in certain aspects. So if I just jump to this vendor share down here so that we don't have to scroll, you can see, IBM showing up. They're making up 5.9% of the total, cloud components vendor market share today. And, we see them growing to 6.2% of that market in 2025. And you can see we also have our data underneath that, supports all of these forecasts, revenues from the previous years, our CAGRs going forward, things like that. So you can start to build up kind of the forward-looking views, what's TBR's takeaway on IBM and how it's going to position itself over the next 5 years or so. What does the Red Hat acquisition mean for IBM as it moves, forward with its cloud strategy? Things of that nature start to show up kind of in these forecasts. And as we start looking at more of the granular pieces that make up, cloud as a whole, instead of just the overall kind of cloud market. And then you can also look at, say, the data center and server storage market forecast. And, for example, if we look at prompt servers, IBM's a leader there, but, in here, we're also going to talk about, I'm just going to jump back up, how, Microsoft and AWS are making progress in developing RISC and ARM processors that have the potential to disrupt IBM's power system. What does that mean for the cloud market going forward? These are all kind of, different aspects that you're able to then pin to this board here. So if I just come back here, it won't have all the content that I discussed because I stopped pinning things. But you can see all the stuff I pinned from the public cloud benchmark is in here, as well as those TBR positions from the individual vendors. One of the nice things about this is once you set up a dashboard, we have a lot of collaboration features that go with it as well. So you can select from a list of your users internally that you want to share this board with. So one person can set it up and then share it with multiple people. You can configure on a per user basis what permissions you want them to have. If you wanted to share it with every user in your organization, you have that ability too. And you can control whether or not you want people to be getting emails that you've shared a board. So for example, if you were sharing it with everyone in your organization, you may not want to notify every single person. Whereas if you're on a smaller team, that might be something of interest to you, and you have that capability. And then once you're working in the board with each other, you have the ability to comment on the board and have that sort of communication right here on the platform. So you can do it at the general level, and we have it set up so that you can have public comments that are visible to anyone who has permission to access that board, or a private comment, for a note-taking feature or something like that, where you may want to make a note of something to come back in the future with, but it's not necessarily something that needs to be visible to everyone who has the board. And you can also do this at the individual pinned piece level as well. So if you want to leave a comment directly on this piece, your thoughts on it, asking someone else to look at it, things like that, you can do that here, same sort of features. So that's kind of our boards feature and what our qualitative analysis is. I'm going to jump over to our visualization.
I'm sorry, Matt, to interrupt, but one of the questions just came through. So you talked about on the sharing functionality of the board, how you can provide different access and designate different folks that might be in the TBR ecosystem already. So, if you were to pick a client and they've got 1,000 users, but they may have 100,000 employees, many of whom would have interest in the analysis. Is there a way where you can push that board to some sort of downloadable mechanism where you would then be able to just share it via an internal platform or an internal library or just a file and an email?
Yes. So certainly you can do that. If you wanted to kind of take it off the platform, put it on another platform, do it via email, things of that nature. We have the same download functionality, which you can choose whether or not you want to include your comments. So if people have left comments on the board, you'll capture those as well when you export. And then it'll just be in, a TBR branded PDF that's showing all of the content that you had pinned to the board, which you can then take and put in an email, put on your own platform, anything of that nature. We will also be offering the ability to, have a way for you to get other users signed up. So say today they don't have TBR access, TBR credentials. As long as you have a license that has seats available, we'll make it easy for you to get signed up through either, self-service trials or allowing you to have an admin on your end that can issue credentials to employees. That way nobody, has to come through TBR, wait for us to get you set up, things of that nature. We want you in this platform, using this platform, so we'll make that as easy as possible to, share it via email or, get the person signed up for an account so that you can share it directly on the platform with them as well.
Thanks, Matt. I'm looking at the list of folks who are sitting in on this webinar now and knowing the hundreds that'll be viewing it in the coming weeks on demand, and the use cases for channel and alliance management and support or enablement, account intelligence, obviously competitive intelligence, and strategy. The ability to pull a custom configured report with the exact specific elements that are of the most important, highest level of interest for your constituency, and being able to push that out in a PDF, we anticipate we'll be able to save people dozens of hours every quarter of manual labor, all through this digital platform. Back to you, Matt.
Yeah, so the last thing that I want to cover is, we've gone over all of our qualitative analysis and how to build a board and, pin different content to it. But, TBR also has a very deep data lake of financial data that accompanies all of our qualitative analysis. So we've built our own kind of, charting capability that allows you to access all of that quantitative data as well. So when we're in, building a visualization, we currently have the ability to choose between line charts and column charts. We're going to be adding in bubble charts, the ability to combine the column chart with the line chart to show, for example, revenue as the column with revenue growth year to year or quarter as line. So you can really start to visualize those aspects as well. And then to kind of get going on this, we're positioned it, two ways that we often see our clients looking at the market, either by a specific company that they want to dive deep into or by a segment that they want to look at multiple vendors across. So kind of sticking with cloud, we'll go by segment, and we can dive down into, public cloud. And now we're going to add a couple of companies here. So I'll just use the same one that I had been using in the other demonstration. And then we're going to want to add a metric. So I'm just going to, scroll through here and find revenue. But you can see, TBR has kind of a wealth of different metrics available for many different companies. It's not just revenue or profit. We get into, headcount metrics, efficiency metrics, things of that nature as well. We'll be building in a lot more kind of granularity around geographies as well as industry verticals, things like that. So you'll be able to really start cutting the TBR data in many different ways. And then, as you do this, you'll see that charts will start to come up. So in this view, we're actually getting a variety of different cloud segments. So we have Amazon's cloud, professional services, hybrid, things like that. You'll also see that we can adjust these. So if we want to, toggle to a different time period, we have that ability. You'll also see out into the future, any sort of forecasted values we have will show up on these charts as well. So not only will you have kind of the historical performance of a vendor, but you'll also be able to see out into the future how TBR expects their business to continue to grow or potentially decline. And you can customize the time period not only with the slider, but also by selecting your month and year from this piece, or by using predefined toggles at the top. You can also switch between a quarterly and annualized view. And then we have a bunch of different kind of download features here as well. So if you want to download the chart as an image, you can choose, whether you want a PNG, JPEG, SVG, or a PDF version of that. So just, a simple click on that is going to pop that up. It downloads. It does have a source TBR indicator in the bottom right-hand corner of it. And the same thing, applies for the data underlying these graphs. So if you want to export the data, we have a variety of formats that you can take that data out of the platform in. And then, if you have your own platform internally or your own models internally that you need to feed TBR data in to maintain your current workflows, you have that capability to kind of configure TBR's data set the way you need it, with the vendors you need, the segments you need, and be able to pull that out. And then, one of the features there is to save it as a template. So say you come in and you have it configured to the vendors you need, the segments you need, to do a workflow every, quarter as earnings come out or as TBR updates its database. You can set this up once and repeatedly come back to it with the same data set every single time. So it's just a matter of giving it a name and hitting confirm here, and then it'll be added back to this data visualization screen here. Cloud demo, we click on it, and we're right back, into the same data set that we previously had before showing up. Going forward, I'll speak about kind of our roadmap and plans here. We recognize that this is a powerful tool, especially if we were to, say, allow you to configure the colors of the charts to match your brand or the brand colors of the vendors in here to use internally. So that's a feature that, we have on our roadmap for, sometime in the next year or so, is being able to provide that ability to you to really start to not only pick the data that's in the visualization, but to also customize the visualization to meet your needs so that you can use it in your workflow. You don't have the data out, put it in Excel and create a chart in Excel. That's basically the same as what you have on your screen just because you need colors or add a logo, things of that nature. And then kind of the last thing that I want to show is just if we were to export this, and I'm just going to choose HTML so it'll open in my browser, you're able to actually see all of the data points that are underneath this. So if you were to envision exporting this in Excel, these are going to be your column headers, period, metric, and then the breakdown by company. So Amazon Cloud's numbers are going to be in this column, Cloud Professional Services, and so on and so forth. You'll see, our coverage may not be consistent as we go all the way back in time. TBR has been in business for, over 20 years. So some vendors we have, 20 plus years of data for. Other vendors are more new players in the market, so we may not have, data from the 2000s and things of that nature. But if we have the data, it will be on this platform. You'll be able to access it. All of that is available to you through this platform. So that kind of gives you, the overview of what the platform is and, how the platform is coming together, what will be available to you in the future. And we are working on integrating these graphics directly into the board feature that I showed before. So as you create the visualization, instead of it just being that, chiclet that has the name that you gave to it on there, you'll actually be able to put it in the board and have that same sort of, look and feel to it that I was showing. So as you're scrolling through your board, you'll still have your data as TBR updates its data. Your chart can update, along with it. So you can create a board and kind of have a continuous flow of information coming into that board over time, as well as we'll be archiving all of our qualitative analysis to enable a really powerful search capability in the future, so that you won't have access to just what's current on the dashboard, but actually be able to kind of rewind time a little bit and pull TBR's analysis from a year ago or 2 years ago. Things like that will be at your fingertips through our search functionality that is coming in the near future.
Matt, if I can jump in. So as you were demonstrating the various line charts, comparing the major web scalers and their subsegments of cloud revenue, the question came up on the data. So I'm grateful that you already popped that up. But to piggyback on that, I know, having spoken to, hundreds and hundreds of users over the last few months alone, many people are really keen to keep the access to the Excel files that we publish that complement our benchmarks and forecasts. So rest assured that as this portal becomes more and more of the single source and place for folks to go, any element of data that we currently make available to clients will remain available and will only become even more granular and even more dynamic. So if you're looking at comparing and contrasting 3 or 5 very specific vendors in the hyperconverged infrastructure space or the cloud infrastructure space, or services firms, managed services offerings in EMEA, you'll be able to populate using our validated data, using our bottoms-up analysis, a very custom, very bespoke view, essentially creating what has historically been a custom or bespoke project with the corresponding cost of that project. But you'll be able to populate it entirely on your own, straight out of the Insight Center portal. Really, some of the key use cases that have been clear over the last 18 months of interviews and surveys that we've conducted, where Matt and others on our team have had the chance to get feedback, and that feedback has really been central, both in guiding us to where we sit today and where the beta users on August 2nd will begin to have access, but also moving forward as we continue to roll out functionality and an ever expanding data lake. The shoreline, if you will, of that data lake will continue to grow, approximately 10 vendors per month. And the granularity, depth, and quality of the data will also grow. So the shoreline's going to get bigger, the depth of the lake is going to get bigger. And all of that will just become more and more agile in how you're able to serve that up, compare, contrast, and examine, so that you and your use cases and the applications become ever simpler, ever more automated, and the ability to collaborate within your internal teams and within your broader enterprise expands. We're very, very excited. And as we wrap up here, I wanted to thank the gosh, hundreds of folks who've attended here, and I'm sure the countless hundreds more who will be viewing this as a on-demand webinar. Many of you who are present here today, and those of you who will be listening, are some of our longest-term customers, folks who have participated in this product and client council, others who have not, and we're ready to work with your central folks, your internal MI, CI, market intel, or channel alliance enablement teams to conduct a more customized and bespoke demonstration for individual enterprises and customers. So don't hesitate to reach out. You've got the contact information right there for myself. Again, my name is Dan DeMers. I'm the Senior Vice President for Sales. And this has been an online demonstration of TBR's Insight Center platform. And it was presented by Matt Bowden. Again, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of working with Matt, he is our Senior Data Analyst. Many of the folks who are on this webinar today have been the beneficiary of his custom modeling work, where we have historically, again, done this on a bespoke basis. And more of what we're going to be providing will allow that kind of singular granularity and application that has not been available in a syndicated kind of a manner. So we're really excited to continue to get your feedback. We appreciate the opportunity and the time you spent today to sit and the many questions we received. With that, we thank you and look forward to hearing from you again soon. Thanks, folks. Have a great rest of the day.